Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, Katie Burke. And today on the show, I have Cameron McIntyre, decoy carver and painter. And we are here in his studio in Virginia.
Can we do a mic check, please?
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Brazier.
I'm your host, Katie Burke.
I'm your host, Dr. Jared Henson. And I'm your host, Matt Harrison.
Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast, the only podcast about all things waterfowl. From hunting insights to science-based discussions about ducks, geese, and issues affecting waterfowl and wetlands conservation in North America. The DUPodcast, sponsored by Purina Pro Plan, the official performance dog food of Ducks Unlimited. Purina Pro Plan, always advancing. Also proudly sponsored by Bird Dog Whiskey and Cocktails. Whether you're winding down with your best friend or celebrating with your favorite crew, Bird Dog brings award-winning flavor to every moment. Enjoy responsibly.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ducks Unlimited podcast. I'm your host, Katie Burke. And today on the show, I'm here with Cameron McIntyre. Welcome to the show, Cameron.
Thank you.
So we are not obviously in the studio. This is not the Ducks Unlimited studio. We are not there. So where are we? Where is this?
Well, I guess technically this is a studio to me.
It's your studio, yes.
It's a pretty disorganized, messy one, to be honest with you.
It's not a set-up stage studio with like weird knickknacks in the background.
No. Although it's cleaner than it's been for several months, if you can believe that.
Yeah, I've been in a bunch of these. I will say yours is, you have like a bigger space. So when you built this, did you build this studio?
Yes.
Okay. So we are actually in Virginia. Where would you say in Virginia we are?
Well, we're on the eastern shore of Virginia,
yeah.
which are two counties that are separate from the entire rest of the state. And we are in the far northwestern corner of the eastern shore.
Okay.
We're about, 15 miles or so from Chincoteague and just south of the Maryland line.
Okay. So I guess just to kind of, so I'm up here because I went to Easton, obviously, when we saw each other there.
Right.
And I've done this. This is my third year. This will be my third year to kind of go to Easton to the festival and then kind of visit a few of you guys. First year I did Grayson and Pete.
Yep.
Last year I went up to New Jersey and did Jamie and George. And then this year I'm down here with y'all. And I did Oliver Toots yesterday.
Nice.
So it's been really great. I like doing this, and I will hope to keep doing this because there's so many of you guys out here. It's kind of the nice part about this area, so much history with decoy carving. And so you're not from here, though.
Right.
And I want to say also, before we get into all this, you have another podcast episode that we did a lot of years ago, and I think it's one of my favorites, so I have them re-release it a lot.
Okay, well, good.
So if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it because you'll get a lot more. Like, we're not going to do a whole lot of background information. So go to that one, kind of introduce yourself to you as a decoy carver. But when you grew up in South Carolina, obviously, you come up here. So why did you choose to come up here? Like, speaking of like the heritage and stuff, like what was your motivation to move? Right.
Well, when I came up here for the first time when I was a young kid, I think I was about 11 years old when I first came to the Eastern Shore on a hunting trip. And now where we hunted in South Carolina was this beautiful area called the Ace Basin. But it was just this one particular area where you duck hunted because there's loads of coastal marsh down there, but very little of that marsh has any duck hunting. It's all, you had to go to this one place.
Yeah.
But when I first came to the Eastern Shore, like the entire Eastern Shore, whether you're on the seaside or the bayside or up in Maryland, it's just waterfowl. It's like a waterfowl paradise. And then obviously I came to learn about all the carvers, past and present, that live in this area. So this is like the decoy capital of the world, really.
Yeah.
So I just knew I was gonna move here. I just first time I saw it, I thought, I'm coming up here.
It's just a matter of time.
Right.
All right. So this place, which, I mean, you can see the shop here, but you have your home and you have this whole, your whole area that you've built up here. It's very idyllic. And so at what point did you start kind of working to get this, this setup that you have? Like, how did that come about? And
well, ever since I was in probably the 4th grade, I just knew that one day I was going to have a farm. I mean, because I grew up in a small house in a small neighborhood, and so that was my dream all these years. And of course, to buy a farm takes money and blah blah blah. But but as I got more established with my carving, and then I got married, and the place where we were living was great, but I just always wanted a farm, and so I went on a mission to try to find a farm to buy.
Okay, how far into your career were you at that point?
I was about 10 years.
Okay.
Real close to 10 years, yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. So as someone in which we talked about a little bit before, but this is all you've ever done, right? You've never done anything else.
Yeah, this, when I was in high school, I had, some different jobs here and there, but my whole adult life since I was, since the day I moved up here when I was 20 years old, this is the only thing that I've ever done for a living. Yeah.
So how did you, so what were you carving in before? Like, how did you have an idea of what you wanted as a studio or as a place that you wanted to, and even a home just to be inspired by? Because, I mean, obviously as a carver and an artist, you're inspired by what's around you.
Right. And I particularly have always been subject to inspiration.
Yeah.
I'm just constantly inspired by things. And when I moved up here, there was a certain sort of early colonial architecture that was similar to South Carolina, even though most of the houses down there were much more extravagant. But there was these simple little story-and-a-half Eastern Shore houses that I just fell in love with the dormer windows and the exposed chimneys. And, I just thought, if I build a workshop or a studio, I kind of want it to look like that. And then I didn't know that I was going to find a house that I could actually move, which is what I did. But I thought, if we ever built a house, it would be based on early colonial architecture.
So you moved your house?
We did.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And I would never, ever do that again. That's my one contribution to society. And I can tell you why, Colonial Williamsburg has an endowment from the Rockefellers, because it would take a fortune to maintain a house that was built in 1785, like the one that I live in.
Yeah.
It does have the original siding on it, which I've maintained. I mean, I have to paint that thing about once every 3.5 years, if you can believe that. Just, but
yeah, saltwater air.
But yeah, yep, saltwater air. And, but the fact that it's still all there is pretty remarkable. But yes, we dismantled that house for the most part and moved it about 14 miles and rebuilt it and restored it and added on to it. And, now we get to maintain it.
Yeah, now you get to keep it. I'll also say, one thing I did art history and we did Southern architecture and everything like that. So I was aware of everything, but y'all always have up here these, it's not just a home, right? You have a home and then you have this little building where your studio, you have a barn, all of these little, they're almost like little homestead type environments, which is very particular to this, I feel like, up here. And you have that here.
Yeah, up in New England, they tended to attach the buildings together, and then they would call it like a dooryard. It would have, the house and a breezeway connected to the barn, connected to the garage, and that's all so that you don't have to go outside in the freezing cold and, waist-deep snow. But, there's a lot of little outbuildings associated with the Virginia houses.
So did you build all of your outbuildings?
No, I didn't. I moved. I have the oldest building on my property is actually a smokehouse that was built in 1750, and I keep some of my carving wood in there. It was supposed to be my wife's garden shed, but it's my carving wood storage shed.
Yeah, that's how that happens.
but yeah, and then there's a historian that I got to be friends with, and along with the outbuildings, the Eastern Shore colonial architecture has all these different types of fences, and he would come over here and see that I was working on this style of fence and that style of fence, and then he called it Cameron's Unfinished Fence Museum.
Yeah, that was very. And I noticed. Well, when I went to Jamie's last year, his whole place is very.
He's got a great place. Yeah, great place.
Yeah, and it's the same vibe, like all the little outbuildings, and you don't have horses. He has horses, but I don't think they're his horses, though. I think they're someone else's.
Thankfully, I've got lots of other things that I do that I shouldn't do, but thankfully one of them is not horses. Because I have a good friend of mine that has horses, and
they're like having boats. But you have boats.
I do have lots of boats.
Yeah. So and they're a lot of maintenance. But no, I grew up. We had horses, and yeah, they're a lot. It's different when you have to, you feed your dog in your home. But when you have to feed horses, you actually have to go to the horses and feed them every day.
Yep.
And they're usually not at your house. So it's a whole thing. And that was my job when I got a license, was I had to go feed the horses before school. And yeah, you don't want to do that.
Right. Well, I don't think I'll go down that road.
I don't think I will back again. I think I'm good for the rest of my life on that. But no, I love this area, and I just really want to talk about that because I know you're inspired by your surroundings, and when you were going in choosing like the home you moved and the place you been, like how did you choose a place to pick where you were going to? Because obviously it's continued to be an inspiration for you after. I mean, this was only 10 years into your career.
Right. Well, I sort of delve into that in my catalog for the show that I'm getting ready to have, and this farm where I live was not for sale. It was just a place that I would ride by all the time on my way to go duck hunting. And I just thought, boy, I love that farm. It's got all this marsh. It's got these big open horizons, which I love open spaces. And, I didn't even know if there was ducks here. I figured, there must be because it's in a good area. But so I didn't even know who owned the farm or how much land was included on the farm, and so I went down to the courthouse. This is in the days before,
Onyx and all
that. Yep, went down to the courthouse, found the names of the farmers, 2 brothers that actually owned all this land, and called them up. And I'm sure they thought I was crazy, but they said, we don't sell land, we buy land. When farms come up for sale, we buy them, and they'd never sold a piece of property before, and it's kind of crazy. But I met with them, and I mean, I could write a book about the day that we met and how the ducks started flying and the geese started flying and it started snowing, and then they told me how much they wanted for it, which was about 5 times more than I was thinking they were going to want for it. But it all worked out. They sold it to me. They financed it for me. They became my friends. They became my customers. They're my neighbors, and so all of that ties into the fact that I just feel like it was meant to be. I mean, I feel like I was meant to live at this farm.
Yeah.
And so, one of the reasons that I haven't, my paintings that I do are almost exclusively right here on this farm, especially for the last 10 years or so. And, I just don't feel the need to really go anywhere else. I walk around this farm day and night. I'm in the woods here a lot hunting. I'm in the marshes all the time hunting. And I haven't even, I've probably painted, between the studies and all, 300 or 400 paintings on this farm, of this farm. And
you do plein air, right? You start studies plein air?
Well, what I do, which it's taken me, a long time to figure out what, you got to figure out what works for you, because we all have different personalities and DNA and skills that, that we're good at, and some things that we're not good at. And what I've arrived at is, I generally like to paint early in the morning, late in the evening, not always, but most of the time. And in order to capture the colors that time of day, because, they do change so fast, you have to work fast and you have to work pretty small. So I do what I call an oil study, and it's really not heavy on drawing or maybe even composition, but I try to capture the colors.
Yeah.
Because, a photograph or, maybe a video would do a better job, but that time of day, you just can't take a picture of that. Maybe if you're
and it won't come out, right? Like, it doesn't.
A photographer for National Geographic, maybe.
It won't get the color. It's just never going to get the color right.
Yeah, it can't get the colors, and I'm convinced, everybody does see colors differently anyway.
Yeah.
So two people are going to see the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And so, the studies have been a huge help for me. So that's how and what I do is I paint the study, I bring it back, and I just stick it on the shelf and spend a lot of time looking at it.
Okay.
And then for the composition, because composition is something that, and I mean, I'm not the first person to say this. Whistler figured this out, 150 years ago. The chance of you walking out in nature and finding a perfect composition is almost non-existent. You can, and that's one of the sort of stumbling blocks with plein air painting is when you go out in nature, there's so much information in front of you that it's overwhelming.
Right.
And it's hard to compose in front of nature. I've learned to do it, so you walk out and you see a scene that you think for whatever reason resonates with you, and this is what I want to paint, right here.
Okay.
And you look at the scene and you think, okay, so what is it that I really love about this? And it could be, this bank of woods and the way the light catches those trees, and then it may have some other trees in it. And, after a while, you can think, boy, this painting would look a lot better if that tree over there on the far right was on the left, or if those woods in the background were a little closer, or maybe part of it wasn't even there.
Yeah.
And so that's how bringing back the study to the studio and looking at it for a long time, it starts to dawn on you that, I can change this around any way I want.
Yeah.
I can add a tree, take a tree out, put some water in it, put a moon. I can do anything I want to this scene, but having the colors be true to the scene is kind of what makes it believable.
Huh. And I would think, especially, I was just looking at them today, and we can go into the paintings more, but because I went and saw them they're at Guyette Deeter right now. And just so the audience knows, what we're talking about is you're having a show at Guyette Deeter, and it's December 6th, and is it your first solo show?
No, I've actually had about 4 or 5 other solo shows, but
this
is
your first
by
auction?
far, yeah, my first auction, but this is by far my most comprehensive solo show because I dedicated my entire year to this show.
Okay.
So everything that I've made this year, with the exception of 2 things, is in that show.
Yeah, they said it was plus 40 plus pieces.
Right, and I've been saving paintings up for 5 years. I mean, people have been calling me, wanting me to sell paintings, and I've just,
you gotta wait till December 6th.
I've just been saving them up.
Yeah.
And so,
okay. So that's what we're referring to, and we went this morning to get some shots of this stuff so that what we're talking about will be in this video. So, but I was looking at it, and that's interesting. You think I didn't even think about that. You could change this scene. So, when I grew up, I went to this artist. I was really fortunate to have an art teacher in my little town of 2,500 people. And she was originally an equine artist. That's what she did kind of to get her start. That's where she made money, I guess, really for the most part. And now she's mostly plein air. But I watched her, and I didn't even think about that I'm sure she did the same thing. She would take it. I mean, I have big pieces of hers that my parents bought me one of her farm, and now I need to go back and look at it and see if she moved things.
Right.
Yeah,
well, I'm sure
it's huge.
I'm sure she did. I mean, everybody, you know, eventually everybody has to figure this out.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you can make it better than reality. I mean, you absolutely can.
But when I look at it, so when we were young, we would, every spring, she would make us go outside. Like she would make everyone, like whatever we were working on, we had to stop. And she was like, when it gets hot, you can go back to it. But she would make us go outside every week. And this is in the Mississippi Delta. So, and it was, our class was at like 5 p.m. or something, which is right. Well, you've been to Arkansas. You know the skies you get in the Delta, those pink and purple cotton candy stuff. So we'd always have to go outside and paint and stuff. And whenever I have that painting, she also had horses because she also did his equine art. So I just remember, I love it because it reminds me of sitting out there and being forced to paint all those scenes. But it's hers, and obviously it's much better than what I did when I was 12. But I think about it. I need to go back and look at it, and we'll see what she did there, because it's funny because the colors are the thing I love about it. And she was a knife painter, which you use brushes, right? Like you're all mostly brushes.
I have used palette knives quite a bit. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not going to use them again, because I probably will, but I mostly use brushes now.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of I mean, they're nice for skies and big things, that, like swats of things you're doing, because you can go faster.
Right. But, and I do things in layers. I mean, I'm a layer type person. Because one of the reasons I paint in so many layers is because I'm not happy with the beginning stages, and I always end up painting over it and painting over it and painting over it. And
that's the beauty of oils.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess I would be a really miserable watercolorist.
Yeah, you can't change them as much. You'd be throwing, like you talked about earlier, like you have all your throwaway heads behind you. You'd be throwing away a lot of watercolors.
I would.
Bet. Yeah.
I've thrown away a lot of oils.
So, my point was, when I was thinking about that, when you're talking about it, the depth of your color that I was looking at today, it provides a lot of emotion to your work that I really appreciate. And I don't really know. It's one of those things that I've seen like your work online. I've seen pictures of it, but when you're in person, you really get to see it. It really hits you a lot harder, like when you come in.
Right, and all art is that way. I mean,
that's the point.
It's rare that I've ever seen a photograph of a painting that was better than the painting was in person.
Oh yeah.
Particularly, I went to an N.C. Wyeth exhibit once up in Maine, and I walked in the gallery, and I was just going from painting to painting. These are big paintings. And I kept looking up at the ceiling, wondering where this light was, that they were shining on this painting, because they all just had this crazy glow. And all of a sudden I got these chills down my spine, because it wasn't the light. It was the guy's paint,
Yeah.
His choice of color and his layers, it was like they were plugged in.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, see, and talking about the photographs of the things like in the catalog, so Guyette Deeter has a little catalog they did for you, and the one that I was just like kind of floored by, because I saw it now in the catalog, I was like, oh, that's okay. I don't really, I mean, I know what he did here because I know your decoys, but the new wood.
Oh, the brand new wood?
Yes, that thing is incredible. Like in person, the photo does not do it justice at all.
Yeah, I've been thinking of doing something like that seriously for probably 20 years.
Yeah.
And how that came about was some of these hanging duck still life scenes that I've carved. In the beginning, I would do like a lot of other people and just find an old board somewhere and mount my duck on the old board, like it was a piece of barn siding or something. And then I started wanting to make my own board, because then I could make it any color I wanted, and I could sort of tweak it the way I wanted it to be. And I would spend so much time working on that board. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And then they would turn out, sometimes I would think to myself, this board doesn't need the ducks on. It could stand alone, I think.
Yeah, it's art.
Especially after looking at some abstract expressionism. I mean, that's pretty much what that board is.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I could just make a board and frame it with a gold frame, and that is the painting. And then the idea, the title for the one that I have in the show is called Brand New Wood, because those are boards that I bought from the hardware store.
Yeah.
Like 2 months ago. And if you look at the back of it, which
I did not look at the back of it. Yeah.
But if you see the back of it, I mean, it is literally brand new wood.
That's really great. Yeah, I mean, I saw that when I saw it in the catalog. I was like, well, that makes sense, because I know like you have this ability to antique decoys, like make decoys look like they're 100 years old, and obviously they're not 100 years old. You made them, a month ago or so.
And I would like to point out also that I'm not necessarily, I'm not making them look old because I want them to look old.
No, yeah.
I'm making them that way because I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
The textures and the colors and all the way all that stuff works together to me is, very sensual, if you will, and beautiful and organic. And so, that's why I do it. And I don't do it on everything.
No.
But that's the reason behind it.
Yeah. No, and you see that when you look at it too. It's not so much that, they look like, well, there's something about decoys, like you see, we just had the auction, obviously, and you're looking at some of the ones that go for like a ton of money or like in pristine condition.
Right.
But those aren't always my favorite, because there's something about the wear on a decoy.
Absolutely.
That is beautiful.
No question. Like, for instance, we'll take the Ward brothers. I mean, if someone offered me a mint condition 36 Ward can or a mint condition pinch breast pintail, or one that's got a lot of, for some reason, to me, a Ward just looks good with a lot of wear on it.
Yeah.
And, an Elmer Kroll does not.
No.
Or a Purdue does not. But certain birds, the form of them, they don't even need paint. A Gus Wilson does not even need paint. A Dudley Canvasback doesn't need any paint.
No, especially the form on a Dudley Canvasback.
Certain Verities, John Graham. I mean, there's certain birds that are simple enough and have enough sculptural form. They look simple, but there's something about them that it's almost like the less paint they have, the more you can appreciate the raw form.
Mm-hmm. We were talking yesterday with Toots, where he was mentioning people he carved with and stuff and learned from, and because he was surrounded by so many people. And for some reason, Lord Tyler came up and someone had one that they just bought off. And I was like, yeah, I love them because they're really folksy and they're very different. But and it was really worn. I was like,
yeah.
But you can see it a mile away. Like you look at a Lloyd Tyler and like, yeah, that's a Lloyd Tyler.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. And I like decoys that you can, by form, you can just point out who that is. Mm-hmm. There's something about being able to point out a decoy and say, that's this guy's.
Right. And some, once you study this long enough, you can pretty much do that with almost everybody. But there's certainly people whose work is more prone to, just sort of lends itself to that instant recognition.
Yeah, they have very much a signature of their own. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Speaking of the decoys, I want to talk about the ones that you talk about, ones that don't have paint. The two standing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I need you to talk about these. We'll put up a picture of them, but they have the iron feet and the two standing. They're not painted.
Yep.
That's so different from anything you've ever done. And when I walked in, I was like, I could tell it was yours, but I was like, well, this is way off what I've seen. So I was really interested on what got you there.
Once again, that's another idea that I've had in my mind for a long, long time. I just got the idea, I have some wood that's really not suitable. Maybe it's got a lot of knots in it or cracks, and it just isn't really suitable for a fancy, more refined decoy. And I thought, I'm going to take some of that wood and just make some weathered ducks that someone could put out on their screened-in porch or on their back deck, and it doesn't matter if they get wet or snowed on or whatever. And I'm going to go ahead and make them kind of have the patina that I think they should have. And then if they develop their own down the road, that's fine. So I had a friend of mine cast some bronze feet for those. And I've been thinking I was going to make a whole flock of them, like 6 or 8 of them. But I didn't get the feet in time. It didn't work out that I could make a whole flock, but I made a pair. And, I would say there's a little bit of Ira Hudson influence in them because, he did make some standing ducks, but the wing
has a little Ira Hudson wing vibe.
Yeah. But in no way was I trying to copy Ira Hudson or anyone else. And
no, they're very unique.
Yeah. I thought they turned out. I remember John Deeter showed me a Gus Wilson great blue heron that he had in his gallery a couple years ago, and as soon as he showed it to me, I said, "That's the patina right there that I want on my porch ducks." But I don't.
Porch ducks.
I think I probably didn't quite get it, but anyway, I do like the patina.
I think you might be the first person to make porch ducks.
Yeah, I probably am. But.
Yeah, except probably like people who do bronzes, but that's different. That's a whole different situation.
But I mean, there a lot of the old time carvers, they made all sorts of. I mean, some of them made door stops and paperweights and
yard signs. Right. Yeah, so there's a lot of those.
Yeah.
Though I loved them when I came in, they're so unique and kind of off what you've done. So I was really interested to hear like what the inspiration was behind those. And I bet you get a chance to do more of them in the future after this.
That's good because I have a lot of second-rate wood that I need to.
It's a good place for
find a way to use it.
Yeah, is that why you use second-rate wood? Because you knew they would be outside and they would have a little more. Yeah,
right. Okay. I have a lot of first-rate wood too, but I saved that for pintails and geese and things.
Those
like
hanging ducks that you do.
Yeah, those definitely require first-rate wood.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know if it's probably 2 Chicago shows ago when you did the huge rig. And we had talked, I had lots of questions. I'm sure everybody had lots of questions about that.
You mean the hanging piece?
Yeah, the big hanging piece with a full rig on it.
Right.
And you do these, a lot of them are one pieces. They're like, the duck is one piece or things like that.
Yeah.
So when you're doing these rigs, I want to kind of talk a little bit about method of it, because it's complicated, because some of these, when you're doing a decoy like we have, the ones sitting around here, you're getting to go with the grain, but with those hanging ones you have to go, because the wing kind of hangs open or you're getting an underside, you're having to go against the grain, and I'm sure it's extremely stressful when you're working on a piece that big. So can you talk a little bit about what that's like when you go into planning to carve something like that?
Sure. Well, first of all, to make one of those is fairly difficult.
Yeah.
But compositionally, it's a piece of cake because it's one bird, and you don't have to worry about how the second bird is going to affect the composition. So I've made a few just with one duck.
Yeah.
Then when you add that second duck, I'd say it gets, 50% more difficult. And then as soon as you go to that third duck, it gets about 250% more difficult. And then the more ducks you add beyond that, the complexity of it in both the composition and all these other factors, it gets exponentially more difficult.
Yeah. So I have a picture of it, so I'll make sure I get it on here. But because what you're saying is because not only do you have the individual duck hanging, it's a dead hang. So just so you have that individual duck hanging, and it has to look dead, obviously, but it's interacting with the second duck and then the third duck, and so they're all gravity is in play.
Gravity's in play, and then the thing that you got to understand is that these things are made out of wood.
Yeah.
Now clay, I'm not taking anything away from someone who makes something out of clay, but clay. When it comes time to mesh them together, if you want to change something, you just bend it this way or that. And,
it's a softer material.
Right.
Yeah.
But with wood, you have to figure all of that out as much as you can ahead of time because, it's like the point of no return. I mean, once you lock these two together, and you got to figure out how that third bird is affected by gravity, because it not only does it have to look good from the front, it has to look good from each side.
Yeah, it's a 3D piece. Yeah.
And, I was talking with Eddie Wozni at the show, and he said, yeah, just when you think no one's going to see the back of it, somebody will hang it like on a beam in their house where you can walk all the way around it. And that's true. So, you have to, you have to really, really think ahead. And, for the most part, wood is designed to be carved with the grain.
Yeah.
But on those, particularly back behind, you got open wings and thighs coming out, and if it's all one piece of wood, I mean, there is no way to get down in there and carve with the grain. It just isn't possible. So, when I started the more and more of those that I made, I had to, like halfway through some of them, I've had to stop and order, dog leg chisels and back bent, front, left bent, right bent, all these different tools, even modify some of my own.
Yeah.
So that I could get into some of these places.
Yeah, and you have one in the show, right? You have it's black ducks.
I do. I have two black ducks hanging.
But that one, I think that one and the teal you did, the green wing teal. Is it blue green wing teal? It's a whole rig of green wing. I think that's the other one you did. Yeah.
Yeah. The green wing teal that are actually out in the Peoria Riverfront Museum now. Those are 6 teal, and that was carved not entirely from one piece of wood, but I would say about 85% of that is one piece of wood.
Oh wow!
And that really was complicated.
So, are you sick of dead hangs? Because you've done a lot lately. I mean, I feel like that's been a lot of what you've been. A lot of what's been commissioned from you.
Well, that's not really true. I mean,
at least that's what's you've been seeing
up until this show. I mean, I work. For 20 some years, I feel like I've worked almost 100% on commission.
Yeah,
and I don't show. I mean, I don't do social media. I don't update my website, so everything that I make just goes out. I box it up, ship it off, and the only person that sees it is me and the person that bought it. So there's a whole bunch of my work out there that no one's ever seen.
Yep. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
But the commission pieces, it seems like, the dead hanging duck scenes, most of those I'm delivering to a show.
Yeah.
And so people get to see them. But I might make one a year, one every 2 years, something like that. So I haven't been really cranking them out, and it's not the type of thing that I'd want to have a complete steady diet of,
Yeah, that's what I would assume. I would assume yes, on one hand, it's super creative. It's a puzzle, honestly, that you have to put together, right? Like you're having to figure out.
Yeah, there's a lot, a lot
more engineering
involved than a decoy.
Yeah, whereas with a decoy and painting, you're getting to be a little more interpretive and stuff, like with what you want. You put more feel into it. So, for the exhibit, how many paintings and versus how many decoys are like? What are the pieces consist of?
I would have to,
or like a percentage,
add it up. I think there's about I'm thinking there's about 20 paintings and about 25 carvings.
Okay,
roughly.
Yeah, and then in there for the decoys, are there any? So is everything new, or did you pull stuff that you already had, or things from your personal collection? Is it all?
I'd say about 95% of it are things that I made this year.
Okay.
And I did end up taking a pair of my personal rig mallards, which are kind of near and dear to my heart because I've used them all over the place, and and I tend to kind of get attached to them, but I've had so many different people want to know if I would sell a pair of those, and I've always said no. And I just thought, I'm going to take a pair of those out. And I took what I consider probably the best ones, honestly, and put those in the show. I made those back in 2016, I think, and they have been, I used those in South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Illinois, Arkansas, Mississippi, North Dakota, Montana, Saskatchewan, So yeah, they've traveled around.
Yeah,
and they've got the wear and tear to prove it.
Yeah, they've seen a lot of ducks. They've also been in the museum.
Right. Yeah. And when
that was a while ago. Yeah, early days.
Quite a while ago. Yep.
They must have not. I don't think it was that long after. If you made them in 2016, it wasn't that long after you made them, because
I think this is about a year later.
Yeah, because that was like the first exhibit I think I put together.
Right.
Yeah, because it took over. That's right, because we opened and Paul Tudor Jones put some of his stuff when we first opened, because honestly he just used us as like storage while he was building a house. So he's
smart guy.
Yeah, and then he took it when the house was ready, and those went in those cases. Like it was you and George and Marty. Yeah, and that was the first thing that I put together. I guess that was my first thing I curated.
Wow,
on my
own. That's pretty nice.
I never even thought about that, but yeah, that would have been the first thing I put together. But yeah, I remember that because you were not. It was like I asked you right before duck season. And you were like, Yeah,
because how a carpenter's house is never finished and a mechanic's car is never fixed and all. Well, it took me forever to finally build up my own personal rig of decoys.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, there's a pintail here that I made this. I bet you I made that 30 years ago for myself to hunt with, and here it is, all these years later, and it's never been finished.
And never made the cut.
Yeah. So
poor thing. So do you use let's talk about that a little bit, because you have all these heads behind you here, and you have this one. So you're keeping them, obviously. I mean, some of them.
Some of them, yeah.
Some of them. So what's the method behind that?
The method behind
the wanting to keep stuff that you might necessarily
these are just ones that I hunt with. So I made those for myself to hunt with.
No, but the ones obviously that you didn't finish. Like why?
Oh, the ones I didn't finish. That one's worthy to me of being finished. Everybody that comes over and sees it says, "Man, you should paint that," which I can't really explain it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But what about the heads, like that the throwaway heads?
Yeah, I've got a bunch of unfinished, they're not unfinished. They're reject heads that for one reason or another they just didn't. Something about them wasn't up to par, but they're too good to throw away, but not good enough to.
So why not throw them away?
I've given away several of them, but sometimes I'll see enough of a spark in one of them. I'll remember what my original intention was, and then I can use that reject head and fix all the things about it in a new carving that went wrong on the reject.
No, that makes sense. So, I don't know. Do you think other carvers, is that unusual to you that you use that? Or
I think
I've never heard of anyone.
Well, I think at this stage, you would think that I'd be good enough at this by now to not have rejects, but I still do. It's, same way with my paintings. I guess in theory I should be better than I am by now, but I don't have a problem with it. If something's not working out, I just
throw it.
I don't want my name on it.
Yeah, and I guess was it also because you mentioned it that you have a spark that you want to do something. So in that process, is it also something it's not going with what you were imagining or how you were thinking it would work?
That happens a fair amount. I'll stand up real quick and grab a few drawings here.
Yeah, hold on. a few
drawings.
A few drawings.
But yeah. So anyway, these are some of my drawings, and I'll just this is very informal, but
well, that's why we're here.
Yeah, I'll just start, drawing some crazy sketches of things, and some of them I'll like them, some of them I won't. But I think this Brant here ended up being part of the inspiration for one that's in my show.
Yeah.
There's a kind of an earlier version of it, and some of these I like, some of them I don't like. I find quotes all the time. Here, Here's one by Andrew Wyeth, who says it's not good to show too much artistic ability. You have to fight technique, not let it take over. You know, you don't want to kind of be an automation of yourself after a while.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting from you when you were talking about. Yeah, like it doesn't.
Yeah, some more, drawings, and I'll just get an idea and I'll draw one version of it and like some things, not like other things, and then finally, this is kind of the last version, which I like better than the other two. And I sketch on pieces of notebook paper, whatever just happens to be laying around, and so that's how the ideas kind of come to me.
Yeah.
These are some hunting decoys I was drawing. I was thinking of some sort of
feeders.
Surface feeders, and maybe some that even had their heads mostly underwater. Huh. And I have thousands of these things.
And do you keep most of it?
Yeah, I do.
That's cool.
There's just an idea. I was trying to work out the composition of some. I think this was Mike's bird before I ever even started on. I was just drawing this up in my mind.
Yeah.
How are 5 or 6 birds going to work on a plaque?
Yeah.
There's a hunting style pintail I was going to make at some point. I've got sketches everywhere.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Well, yeah, it's interesting because that's one of the great things about like getting to come and be in your studio and other carver studios. We get to kind of have that inside look.
Right.
So let's go back to the show a little bit because I do want to talk a little bit more. We talked some about your paintings before, but let's talk a little bit more about kind of some of the ones that are in there.
Yep.
Do you have any in particular that you would like to kind of talk about the story behind or anything like that? Like, because I think people are familiar with your decoys like that.
Yep.
That's what you're known for. But I kind of want to highlight a little bit, especially since we have the footage from earlier, some of these paintings that you've done.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, every painting in that show was inspired by living here at the farm.
Yep. Well, isn't the name of the exhibit like On the Farm? Is that what
it's a portrait of a farm?
Portrait of a farm.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
And some of them are things that I see just looking out my window. And I've found that if you stay in one place long enough and look at it all the time, that you'll start to see some possibilities and some beauty that you just won't see.
Well, it changes.
Yeah, it changes, and
things grow, things die, things change.
Yeah, and one reason that I would, in my kind of my art teacher that I first studied with, William McCullough down in South Carolina, he cautioned me about plein air painting, especially contests. He said, you should never do that. He said that is not what painting is about. And I've seen some brilliant plein air painters that can go to a place that they've never been before and sit down and paint something beautiful. But for me, I have to build it up in my mind for a long time before I can do anything worthwhile with it. And so he kind of cautioned me, he said, don't do that. And I agree with him, you know, so I would never enter a plein air painting contest. I, just don't, that's just not me.
Yeah.
But having said that, a lot of my paintings, especially the smaller ones, they are what you would consider plein air paintings. I mean, I've taken my easel out in the field and set up and painted them out in the marsh or, in the woods. And almost all of them, I would say, without a doubt, probably every single one of them, I have worked on them in the studio. The next day I see things that I could change a little bit. So, I have reworked them a little bit.
Yeah.
The bigger paintings, they start from a small sketch, and then some of those I might work on them for 2 years, just changing, adding things, taking things away. And Yeah, and there is a painting in the show. It's called Russ's Cedar, and what that painting, I got to be good friends with a fantastic painter named Russell Chatham, and he was from Montana, and I met him back in, God, I think maybe 2008 or 9, and we sort of, I don't know, I mean, we kind of hit it off. Even on that very first visit, he gave me a painting that he had painted back in 1969 on the Piazzoni Ranch in California. But after we got to be friends, and he would send me letters, and we'd write back and forth. I sent him some pictures of my farm one time, and one of them was a cedar tree that's in my front yard. And he painted a beautiful painting of that cedar tree, and I think it was called Winter Juniper, and it was a snow scene, and I would have loved to have had it, but it was way, way out of my price range. But I was so honored that he, painted a tree that's in my front yard.
Yeah. That
later on I painted that same tree in the springtime, kind of on a misty morning, and as a tribute to him, I called it Russ's Cedar. So.
Yeah. So I'm guessing, how did you meet him?
I went out to Adele and I went out to see Yellowstone National Park, and I knew he was living in the area there, and I contacted him ahead of time and told him we were coming out there, and he said, "Sure, stop by." And I told him I was painting, and that I'd seen his paintings in a book, and I just was blown away by them. And anyway, went by to see him, and he spent the whole day with us. He took us to his house. He was, took us in the bedroom. He was pulling huge paintings out from under the bed, taking them out on the porch, dusting them off. I was driving in this rental car, and he'd say, "Do you have time to go?" I said, "I've got all the time in the world." So he drove us around, show us where he painted different landscapes, and took us to his printing. He had a printing company at that point, and went in there, and he gave me all sorts of books and papers he'd written, just all sorts of things. And then in 2015, he was back in California, and I was incredibly fortunate that he invited me to California, and I flew out there. That was the first time I'd ever been to California, and I stayed with him for a week, just the two of us, and we'd get up every morning and go to his studio, and he would show me everything there I ever wanted to know about painting, and then some.
Yeah,
and,
that's amazing. It
was amazing, and one of the incredible things is we were there one day, and I said, "Hey, Russ," I said, "I've never seen the Pacific Ocean." I said, would it be possible to go down there? And I said, "I can go by myself."
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, no." He says, "Hop in the van and we'll go down there." So he drove me down there, and on the way he pointed out lots of places where he had painted. And when we got there, I said, "Do you mind if I just run down on the beach? I'm gonna dip my toe in the ocean just to say I've done it." So I did that, and about 2 or 3 months after I got home, FedEx pulls up with this big wooden crate, and he had painted a painting of the Pacific Ocean right there where I dipped my toe in the water, and gave that to me as a gift, which I just couldn't believe it.
Yeah, that's super special. Yeah, that's amazing.
And then the very last part of the story that I think is also incredibly means a lot to me is when he was getting really close to the end of his life, he sent an email and asked me. He said that he was getting ready to take that boat across the big water to see the rest of his friends and family. And he asked me if I would send him a few canvasback ducks to eat, because he wanted to have that as his last meal.
Oh, that's
so I sent him those ducks, put them in a cooler, and overnighted them, and that was the last I ever heard from him. And,
that's beautiful.
Yeah, so that was just very fortunate to meet someone like that.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. It's funny that the place, like, people ask me all the time about like they think my job is cool
Right.
because I get to do this. I'm like, well, it's not the decoys and the art and stuff that makes my job cool. It's the people that I get to meet. I get to meet so many really neat people through this job.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure you do. And you know, it's obviously the people that made the decoys and the art.
Yeah.
And some of those old guys, we can never know them. So they do live on through their art.
Yes. And that's really special to be able to like have that piece
Right.
of them and stuff. Yeah. No, that's great. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that was one of the highlights of my life, without a doubt.
Is there any other thing that we want to mention before we go about the show or anything? Or do you want to end there?
I just, if there's anything else any other questions you have?
Oh, I have plenty, but we would go on forever.
Yep.
So we could end it right there. But yeah, thank you for doing this and thank you for sharing. I look forward to seeing I bet your rig pair go for more than you think they're going to go for.
Well, that's all out of my control.
We'll find out. But yeah, I can't wait to see it. I was really excited to finally get to see your paintings in person. So that was a highlight for this trip. So
well, great. I hope they lived up to your expectations.
And more.
Great.
So I appreciate it. Thanks, Cameron, for doing this with me.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, Cameron, for coming on the show. Thanks to our producer, Chris Isaac, and thanks to you, our listener, for supporting wetlands and waterfowl conservation.
Thank you for listening to the DUPodcast, sponsored by Purina Pro Plan, the official performance dog food of Ducks Unlimited. Purina Pro Plan, always advancing. Also proudly sponsored by Bird Dog Whiskey and Cocktails. Whether you're winding down with your best friend or celebrating with your favorite crew, Bird Dog brings award-winning flavor to every moment. Enjoy responsibly. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show and visit ducks.org/DUPodcast. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of Ducks Unlimited. Until next time, stay tuned to the Ducks.